My name is Olumide Soyombo, and I'm a lucky guy. I say I'm lucky because I've been privileged to have received investment in the company I founded, and I've gone ahead to invest in several other companies. But you see, I think my entrepreneurial story started way before I even realized it. Because growing up, I wanted to be a medical doctor. That was up until the summer of '96. I'd come back home from boarding school, went into my dad's room, and I saw this item that looked like a TV and had a box beneath it. Turned out to be a Windows 95 PC, and no one could get me off that PC throughout that whole holiday. Many might not remember those times where it was the days of dial-up internet, so you had to connect your landline to your modem, and once you were on the internet, no one else could use the phones. So I engaged the whole phones throughout the holiday. And it was while playing around the internet, I was 12 years old at the time, that I came across my first business idea, which was to register free email addresses on Hotmail and Yahoo, and then sell it to people for 150 naira. I did that successfully, and I guess because I'd grown up in a household where my dad was an entrepreneur, I'd seen him start several businesses, close them down, start again. So I guess the entrepreneurial thing was already in my genes. But my real entrepreneurial story didn't start till 2008. I'd moved back to Nigeria after a master's program and doing some consulting gigs. And I figured I was going to start a software company. So I partnered with a gentleman called Kazim Tewogbade, and the whole idea was to build out a software company that would cater to the banks and telecom companies, building out data warehouse solutions, enterprise applications for most of them. The only problem was we didn't have any startup capital. We figured out that we would need about, say, 5 million naira, and we did that by calculating, if we paid each other 150,000 naira a month for 1 year, that gives you 3 million, right? And then we add another 1 million for expenses, office expenses, and a building, gives us 5 million naira. But where were we going to get 5 million naira from? Again, this is why I said I was lucky. I was lucky to have a dad who was willing to back me. My dad gave us 5 million naira, but he took 50% of the company. My own father took 50% of my company. But we signed a share buyback agreement that said I could buy the shares back at a future date. And that happened a year after. We're able to go back to him to say, Dad, I have the 5 million naira, I want my shares back. And he said, no problem, he would take the exact 5 million. So he took the check of 5 million, gave it to my brother who had just moved back and took 50% of his own company. I think the key lessons he was trying to teach was, there's no free lunch anywhere. And for anything you're going to get, you're going to have to work for it. I think some of the key lessons everyone here should also know is, once you're starting up, you need to know how much you really need. And don't give 50% of your business to anyone, even if it's your dad. Fast forward to 2014, and this company we had started was doing very, very well. And we're seeing what was happening in the early stage tech startup scene, especially in Yaba. And we figured out we could start investing in those companies. So my partner and I took $500,000 from this company to set up a new entity that would end up investing in those companies. And I shared this idea with my mentor network. Of course, it included my dad and some high net worth individuals. And I believe everyone should have one, a group of people, either younger or older, that you can always share ideas with and bounce ideas off them. So my mentor network received an email from me saying, I'm going to start investing in early stage companies. And I wanted to understand how they had invested in traditional businesses and how I could bring that into investing in tech. I got a very interesting response from one of the high net worth individuals, a British Indian billionaire, but based out of Lagos. And he said, Olumide, what you're about to do is very interesting. I'm going to give you $1 million. But remember, I wasn't looking for money. I was just looking for advice. So I responded telling him the same thing, that I wasn't looking for money. He responded with something that still stays with me till today. He said, when the goddess of wealth comes to anoint you, you do not say you want to get ready for the occasion. You accept it immediately. So folks, I accepted from the goddess of wealth. So we ended up with a $1.5 million fund, which we used to invest in very interesting companies, from payments to savings to agriculture to logistics. And some of the key lessons from there are, sometimes when you ask for advice, you might just get money. And when the opportunity comes, you need to grab it. But you need to grab it on very clear terms. The high net worth individuals I mentioned earlier were folks who were in the trading business. So they were used to I buy at 8 naira, I sell at 10 naira, my margin is 2 naira, and I'm gone. But what they were about to come into investing in a fund required patience and even required them understanding that this thing might not even work. But because they had seen what I'd done with my previous company and the success story that we had built, and they had seen how I'd worked through problems, they were ready to back me. Because whether local or foreign investors, every investor is looking for the same thing in the entrepreneur. Every investor is looking for that entrepreneur that has the staying power, that has that grit, that you know will do anything even in face of tough times. And then every investor is also looking at every entrepreneur that can also have the right temperament and resolve to change action in the light of new information. I remember an entrepreneur I invested in 2014, a young guy who was doing something in the healthcare space. So he built out this fancy drug reminder system that would tell people when to take their drugs. But then the market wasn't ready, and that went pear-shaped. But the same entrepreneur started something in the renewable energy space, and because I had seen how he worked through problems, I ended up investing in him again, and today he's a success story. And the more success stories we can get in Nigeria, the more it would unlock more local investments. Because while we welcome a lot of foreign capital, and it's very good that we're having that coming to Nigeria today, it's still local investors that will end up managing regulatory issues, introducing you to contacts, and so on. And the more important part is, even when exits happen, and when we are able to sell some of these companies, because that would eventually happen, the money stays here and can go into funding other companies. But on the other side, and on the flip side, the entrepreneurs also have to be ready when they receive funding. You receive funding from an investor, it's not the time for you to take that money and turn up in the best clubs in Lagos, or even go around and buy a new car. And then your investor is chasing you up and down, or your investor is thinking, where has my money gone? In addition, you also need to learn how to give updates. Because the guy has taken his money and is wondering, where has this guy gone? An investor is all in his thoughts, thinking, this man has just bought a Benz. Is it with my money this guy used to buy this Benz? And finally, obviously, you need to give updates, and regular updates, because those are the same investors you would end up going to when you need to raise a follow-on. I believe the future of our ecosystem would be built for the better when entrepreneurial goals and investor goals align. We can end up with an ecosystem that we are proud of, an ecosystem where we are celebrating profits and exits, not how much a company has raised or which tech blog is carrying their story, an ecosystem where we've created hundreds of thousands of meaningful jobs, an ecosystem where we have local investors participating, such that you don't have to be lucky to have a family or a dad that would invest in your business, because there will be many investors who will be willing to do so. Thank you.